Gamers, like BC says, I'm really a fan of him. Togre here with a new video, and we are going to do a tier list for Soloq Rbg. And a few notes before we start. There is no real data of the specs that are over like doing well in those like scenarios like a Soloq Rbg. There is no real hard data as well, like just generally who is the best Soloq RPGer in the game. There is none of that, so it's very hard to do factual tier lists. But this is like more of a. It's always going to be an opinion. Like tier lists for me are opinions, and it depends on how it's opinionated, so how it is explained, that it is going to be like valuable or not. But overall, I could say that I have pretty much a grasp on the kind of meta that could be for Soloq Rbg, the specs and classes that I'm very afraid of, and just in general how those classes are doing in general. But of course, it is a Soloq Rbg scenario where objectives matter most. So if you're able to take the flag 3 times and you win, and even if it's a D tier spec, well, good job. That's really good. It doesn't matter if you're like top DPS or not. If you are able to make your team win, that is like probably best than anything you could actually say about a spec. But that's like personal skill and personal strategy. Now let's talk about the tiers really quickly before people like panic. So S tier means that they are like the best specs out there. A tier means that it is like the meta, which means good. B tier means like average to okay. It's not bad, but it's also not good. It's not bad. It could be good, but it's not like good, right? It's like you can play it and you won't feel too much of a difference, but you will feel some difference whenever you're facing like those better classes and specs against you and you don't have them in your team. C tier is underpowered, so it means that you will not see them too much time on the battlefield, but also whenever you're seeing them, you know that they're going to be either not that good in DPS or not that good in healing, or they're going to be victims in the Soloq Rbg. They need some help, kind of just already with just like actual buffs and maybe nerfs here and there to compensate. But overall, those classes have also little synergy. And then you have D tier, which are like specs that you really don't want them in your team. Overall, I don't think there is many D tiers. I cannot really come up right now with a D tier. It will depend on like whenever I'm going to make a tier list. But also a side note, you don't see any tanks. I'm going to be honest, it's very hard to judge tanks because you don't see them a lot in Soloq Rbg right now. It might be in rated whenever it's going to be rated. It might be that the Soloq Rbg meta will be having a tank, and it will be more fun to play with a tank in your team. But right now it is not the case, and I would say that probably whenever rated is going to be live, you will not see that many tanks. Because the sole reason for that is you only have 2 competitive tanks right now in my eyes, depending on maps, and those are like protection, not protection, guardian druid and vengeance demon hunter. So those 2 are the best because of their capacities to use mobility to advance. But overall, those are my opinions about tanks right now. So let's start with affliction warlock. So warlock is a class I do play, so a class that I have experience with, a class that I know that it can do very well. Now, I think the difficulty of the tier list is I have to compare to other classes and specs, and I think affliction warlock in this current meta is not that great because in 8 versus 8, it is great to fight with, but warlocks in general, like affliction warlock especially, is a very slow burner in fighting, and the issue with that is it is like capped timing. So exactly like Soloq RPGs are going between 10 to 15 minutes maximum, and in general games are like more quicker than that. It ends in 8 minutes, sometimes in 10 minutes, depending on how the games goes. And affliction Warlock is one of the more slow specs in the game. You have a portal, you have a TP, that's very great, but it's very hard to move throughout the map and trying to fight as well, because if you're fighting, your mobility is gone, because again, you can only use it once and then you're keeping on fighting, or you try to drop combat and you go for mounting and then you go on domination maps here and there. I do feel like it has a difficulty. You can carry games if you're going to go for big team fights on, like, especially maps like, for example, Eye of the Storm. If you're in the middle and you can actually like put a good portal beneath and you're using the TP on them, so you're going to teleport them outside of the range. But also just in general, you can also do a lot of multi-dotting. You can do well, but I think in maps where you have to be very mobile, very flexible, very I would say active, it's very hard for affliction Warlock to have a lot of impact compared to, let's say, a destruction Warlock. Like a destruction Warlock, like I would say it's B tier affliction Warlock. I would say that destruction Warlock is probably a great S tier. I do play destruction Warlock. I think it's very strong. I think you have plenty of time to use your chaos bolts and to actually like have like 3 chaos bolts at the same time, where then someone just gets blown up, especially if you're going for a more of a mass rebuild, which you can afford in Soloq Rbg. You can actually hit like up to 400k chaos bolts, and again, you can have the berserker buff, you can have multiple things that can buff yourself to do a lot of damage. And I think comparatively with affliction Warlock, the kill time is really lower, so it means that it takes less time to eliminate the enemy, so you can then move on to other places. Or you can literally do a 1v2 because you have one of the best like CCs in the game with Fear. And just in general, you have enough survivability to be able to do a 1v2. Affliction Warlock can also do that, but it will take too much time. And again, time is really running out in Soloq Rbg. And then you have Demonology Warlock, which I find underpowered because of the damage output that they can have in Soloq Rbg. I think it takes also a lot of time to ramp up. And you don't have like the builds from Shadowlands where you could literally do demon bolts that were like 3-shotting people with crits. That is not happening right now. So what you kind of have to understand is Demonology Warlock is especially slow, but also slow killers, and you have a lot of setup that you have to do, and sometimes you don't have to, you have to commit too much to be able to have a difference in the game. Also think pet classes in general is not that good. Compared to a BM Hunter where they could camouflage, Demonology Warlock cannot. So it means that if you're defending a node, often if you're facing like someone that is very stealthy or able to just do a straight 1v1, you're going to lose that node pretty quickly as well. Yeah, I think it's the less interesting spec out there for Warlocks. But it can change depending on the meta in War Within, depending on the extra tools that they get. It could be changing into the direction of Shadowlands, and then it becomes better. Like if Demon Bolts was like really lethal, it could be going B or A. But right now it is not the case, so it feels like you're too much like around the pets and trying to build up your damage. Now, let's talk about... I'm going to talk about warriors really quickly. I think warriors is my expertise as well. Warriors, you have Fury and Arms Warrior. Let's talk about Arms. I think Arms is probably one of the best melees in the game because you have a big Mortal Strike, which is something that you kind of want in your team. Because of the no dampening, healers are very strong, which I'm not against. I think healers being strong is very good. I think comparatively, every healer is S tier compared to a DPS, for example. But again, you have to compare healers with healers, or else you will never be accurate with the tier list. I think Arms Warrior in general, having the 50% MS, having the uptime of an MS like all the time, pretty much, having a lot of AoE damage, having the damage available pretty much at all times compared to other specs, it's a really good one. You have also a lot of survivability. I think you have also a lot of mobility, not too much compared to a Havoc Demon Hunter, for example. And you kind of slow if you don't have enemies in front of you. You cannot really charge in, so you cannot really move from place to place. But I think in general, Arms Warrior, if you want a main one for War Within, I think you are going to be playing a safe spec. that spec is never going to be C tier or D tier in Soloq RPGs. Never. I think because of the utility it has, because of the offensive power and defensive prowess that they have, you are very safe around the A or S tier spot. It could be B tier, but again, I've changed my mind multiple times. I think the value of an arms warrior itself in a team is way higher than a lot of specs they like comparatively, I would say. Fury warrior, on the other hand, right now is not that good. I think I don't want to put them in D tier because I do generally think no one is really garbage in Soloq Rbg. But I do feel like it's C tier just because of the damage throughput is not that impressive. It gets stopped really high, really fast. I think it could be stronger in War Within because of Blazestorm. I think Blazestorm is such a fantastic thing. You don't get kited too much. And you're able to have double the Blazestorm as well in War Within, by the way. Because you have like another talent for Blazestorm on the Fury tree right now on the alpha. So I do think it will get better, but right now with the builds that you have and the damage that you have, it feels like you're doing less than most melees. You have a great MS effect, but it gets like overwritten. Most likely in Soloq RPGs, you never get to the point where you have 36% MS at all times. I think damage is really high whenever they're bursting, but they really have to have their burst. Like comparatively with the Arms Warrior, where even without Avatar or Colossus Smash, and even then Colossus Smash is like on 20-second CD if you're like playing with anger management and trying a lot of fights, you get like Colossus Smash every single time. You have way more damage compared to Fury Warrior. I think Fury Warrior, the potential is very high, but you're very CD reliant. Like, you could be even playing with Spear of Bash and do like the biggest crit ever, but the problem is you have to ramp up and you have to use your abilities, which again are very telegraphed as well. So I'm not really a fan of Fury. Again, I might be biased, but I do feel like Arms is way better than Fury, and just because of that I need to make space between them. Rogues, I'm going to say that Sub Rogue is S tier on all the maps, maybe not Kog'Maw, but the other maps are very good. I think Sub Rogue is just fantastic. I'm going to talk about every single rogue spec. I think those three are S tier. I think Assassination Rogue maybe A tier because it doesn't have like CD reduction on their vanish compared to Outlaw Rogue and Sub Rogue. Like Outlaw Rogue can reduce the CD on vanish. I think Sub Rogues as well with Shadow Blades. I don't know, maybe. I don't know. I don't think so, but they have like double vanish. Yeah. They have reduction whenever they're using their vanish. It reduces their vanish as well. But overall, I think they are very strong. It's a very strong class. If I'm talking about the class, I think Rogue is one of the classes that you want ideally to have one in your team because it gives like a lot of pressure. You can win games because of like a lot of good mechanics, like for example blinding into a cap, or even if you're playing like in Warzone Gulch, you can really gain a bit of time just by sapping the flag carrier. You have a lot of ways to also one-shot someone that has like 10 stacks on them. Yeah, I think in general it's a fantastic class where you have a lot of agency, which I'm going to repeat myself, not every single class has that amount of agency in their gameplay. Hopefully you don't hear the cars on the background, but I guess you might hear it. But they have a lot of agency. It's very fun. It's laid back a bit. Like if you're playing Rogue, it feels like you're very much chilling. Like you can do 1v2s. Sometimes you're doing a 1v3 and you still survive and you gain a lot of time against the enemies. You're not going to kill everyone, but you're going to be able to stop them for a long time, and that's very interesting in a 8 versus 8 matchup. Assassination Rogue has a lot of throughput though, and they do a lot of damage at all times pretty much. Outlaw Rogue the same kinda, but I do feel like Outlaw Rogue has more tools to stop the enemy compared to Assassination Rogue. Alright, let's talk about Druids. I think Druids is a good talk. I'm going to talk about Resto Druid first. I think Resto Druid is S tier. It is S tier because of the spec, but most likely because of the tuning. I think tuning wise, they are very strong. I think without dampening, it's really hard to down a resto druid that has full hearts on them. You could 1v2, like not 1v2, but 2v1 or 3v1 a resto druid, but it's not fast enough. Like, you're going to lose a lot of time. And on nodes maps and on flag maps, I think resto druid are also very good because they have a lot of mobility, and that's something you want to have on your team, especially on those maps. And currently you are very tanky because of bear form and because of the hearts that you have on yourself, and just generally the evasiveness of a resto druid is very high, very strong. I like it. Balanced druid, you will see a lot of S tiers. I'm sorry, because it just is what it is. There is a lot of specs that are very good, the best of the best, and balanced druid is probably the best spec out there if you really want to be competitive in Soloq RPGs. If you're playing balanced druid, you're going to have a great time. You're going to survive a lot of damage. You're going to do a lot of damage. You're going to be very obnoxious because of your cyclones. You are also very hard to kill in Soul Shuffle and in Soloq RPGs, because compared to Soul Shuffle, you have no dampening, and in general, not every single comp against you is going to be very optimal. With what I'm saying is, they might not have a MS effect. So if they don't have a MS effect, which is a mortal wound effect, which is a healing reduction effect, they are not going to down you very easily. You have mobility, you have space, a root beam is really lethal. It's very hard to counter balanced druid. I think balanced druid just in general has multiple builds that they can play. They can play like a more of a one-shot build. They could also play like of a AoE Starfall build where literally everyone is going to die around them. Very, very strong, and yeah, I think if you are looking for a meta spec, I think there is nothing else more meta than balanced druid right now. Let's talk about feral druid. Where is feral druid? Here's feral druid. Feral druid is more of a B tier spec because of current balancing. I think it is balanced like in War Within, which I guess is going to be very good. It's going to be higher, but it doesn't have a restuff very easily, I would say. You have to pop Berserk, which is a long CD, and you have to be also playing the right talent for it. Most people are playing Convoke right now because they want to be able to 1v1 someone very quickly in a stun and then cap, which is acceptable, but again, a lot of people get their trinkets still available whenever they're defending. But Feral Druid is interesting because they have the damage, but the accessibility of the damage is not that easy, especially in Soloq RPGs, where if you want to deal damage, you want to Cyclone to get the Feral Frenzies very easily. But it's very hard in Soloq RPGs whenever people have multiple interrupts, and they could actually interrupt you, or they mini CC you, or they do a CC on you, and you don't get the Cyclones out. So that's a tough thing. A good thing about Feral Druid is it's not easy to focus one compared to Soul Shuffle, where you do want to focus a Feral Druid. So you have some redeeming factor, but yeah, Feral Druid, it's not bad. It's also not that great, but it is average, I would say. I do feel like Affliction Walk is a bit better than Feral Druid because of how they are designed right now. Let's talk about Shaman. I think Shaman is interesting. I think Resto Shaman by itself is not that great, but it's because of how the totems are just designed. It's not really made for Soloq RPGs. It is made for raids, it's made for Mythic Plus, and it's made for arenas. In Soloq RPGs, those totems get destroyed instantly if they're good, or you don't get a lot of value. And I think Resto Druid just suffer from that. But Resto Druid can help with DPS though. They have like Stormkeepers, they can also blast some Lava Bursts. You get Lava Surge in your talent tree, and you put like Flame Shock on everyone, and you get some instant Lava Bursts where you can deal a lot of damage, again up to 100k, sometimes even higher. And I think Resto Shaman has that, which some specs don't. But compared to Resto Druid, I would say that it is B tier. I'm very sorry. I would, again, healers in general are S tier compared to DPS, but I'm comparing it with healers. I do feel like Resto Shaman is like 2 levels behind Resto Druid in Soloq Rbgs. I think in Soul Shuffle it is way better right now because of how the scaling is working. Next season is going to be quite terrible because we get like a bad tier set. But I think Resto Shaman, if you want to judge it right now, it is a B tier spec. Enhancement Shaman. So Enhancement Shaman, I've been playing a bit. I think they need a rework anyways. I'm not really a fan of the iteration right now. I want to be able to do a Storm Strike and be able to do damage. It feels like I'm not doing damage whenever I'm doing Storm Strike. It feels like I'm doing like puppy damage. I'm doing like damage that is not lasting. I don't have a mortal wound, so everything I'm doing, it's stinging, but they get healed instantly. So I have to play like either a cheese spec where I'm playing with Ascendance, or I have to play like of a elemental build where it's with lava lashes and ice strikes and frost shocks and elemental blast doing damage. And that's not really enjoyable. But if I have to judge, I do feel like it has some redeemable factors, so I'm going to put them in B tier. I think it is because healing is really effective in Soloq Rbg, and being a hybrid, being able to do some big heals, but sometimes even crits on yourself, can make you quite invincible. I think in 1v1s, if they don't have a stun or they don't have like available tools like a big CD that they can use on you, you're quite immortal if you're using your Maelstrom for healing. You could also take the PvP talent where you're going to spend your Maelstrom on lightning bolts, for example, and then you get like a stack or stacks for healing, so it's free. But you do lose a PvP talent for that, so it's not that optimal. But I think Enhancement Shaman is not bad, but it's very close of C tier. Like they need a rework because it doesn't really have something like spicy to it. Elemental Shaman though, I'm really enjoying it. I think it's an A tier spec. Depends on the builds that you're playing. I played, like, again, previous video I played like Elemental Shaman with like some one-shot mechanics with Ascendance. I don't think it's meta, but it's very fun. You can really like down someone from 100 to 0 if you get like a lot of RNG. Your damage is really high. I think your damage is very high at all times. You don't need to multi-dot everyone to get like a lot of lava bursts because you're playing around your lightning bolts as well with that build. Or else you play the more popular build, which is the normal build, where you're basically going to flame shock everyone and you're going to do a lot of lava bursts that are instant. And if you get like a proc with deep-rooted elements, you get Ascendance and you're going to murder everyone. But again, it depends on how you like to play. Personally, I think as Elemental Shaman has a lot of tools to be able to be very good on a lot of maps. There are a few maps where I say Elemental Shaman is not that good, but on most maps, a knock is very interesting. A lasso is very interesting. Being able to displace with your totem is very interesting. Being able to lasso, did I say lasso? Yeah, lasso is also very strong. Hexing is very strong as well. People are not like decursing, so right now at least. So if you're putting a hex on a healer, often they're going to stick on the hex, and if they do trinket, you can just lasso them, and then you can thunderstorm them. Put the static field totem, projecting them away. You can be really annoying towards healers, and healers are really carrying games. So if you're able to stop a healer from healing, you're pretty much going to win the matches, or at least the fights. Let's talk about Evoker. I think Evoker is hidden OP on Soloq Rbg. They have huge mobility, they have huge damage currently. I think next season is going to be a bit more calm, but I think with War Within you're going to see the full potential of Evokers, at least for Destruction Warlock, for the Evoker, Dev Evoker, excuse me, Devastation. I think they have a lot of potential that is untapped right now because of the lack of knowledge of Soloq Rbg, but being able to be that mobile and that strong and that heavy hitting does help for compensating your team's weaknesses, for example. Preservation Evoker is also very strong in Soloq Rbgs. I'm going to move my camera because I do feel like it's going to be a very long S tier. I'm very sorry, guys. I know that some people are going to type, but there's so many S tiers, so nobody's S tier. No, it doesn't work like that. Again, I do feel genuinely that a lot of specs are very good in Soloq Rbgs for different reasons. It's very hard to say a S plus or a A minus or a A plus, because I do feel like it's genuinely a row full of great specs. Maybe Outlaw Rogue could be A tier, to be honest, but for now I'm going to keep it there. I do feel like those two healers are very strong because they have mobility, they have the healing, they have a huge amount of AoE healing, by the way. They're also very hard to kill, they have damage, they have, like, again, very slippery as well. They are killable, Preservation, but again, they kind of can kite you if they want to. Very strong. And yeah, I think that's for Preservation Evoker. Augmentation Evoker, I haven't seen that many yet. But whenever I was testing Soloq Rbg on the PTR, it was actually very good. But they did nerf it multiple times. So I'm going to put it in a category. I'm going to change it because I don't think there is a D tier. I don't know. Lack of info. I'm very sorry. Lack of info. Augmentation Evoker, I don't know. If you guys do fight an Augmentation Evoker, you do feel it's very strong, let me know. But for now, I haven't seen one yet. Like, I did a lot of Battleground Blitz. I haven't seen one yet. So it's not even like a question of is it strong or not. It's more like I don't see them. So I don't know if it's going to be strong or not. But it has utility. So that's something that they have. They have all off heals, they have some good okay burst damage. So it depends on how it's played and versus who you're playing and how it is going to end up. Let's talk about DK. DK is interesting because Frost DK genuinely, man, that S tier is going to be, I'm going to put them at A tier below arms, but it's very strong. I think people don't realize that being disruptive also counts a lot in BGs. If you want to win, generally you have the time or the objectives or being disruptive enough to make them not go on your objectives. Now, I do feel like Frost DK is one of those specs that you cannot really leave them alone because they're going to Chain of Ice you till eternity, they're going to stun you, they're going to slow you again, they're going to stun you again, they're going to silence you, they're going to grip you away, they can like hostage a healer if they want to. They're very strong. And also, if you're ignoring them, a full Pillar of Frost, full value is a god, like it's going to destroy someone. The issue that Frost DK has currently is that it doesn't have a mortal wound, it does die quickly, and I feel like the gameplay is too much revolved around Pillar of Frost. I would like to see them go away from that, but I don't think they're going to do that. But right now, those are the issues with Frost DK. But even despite that, they're going to still be able to carry games because of their huge disruption that they have. But sometimes you have to realize, look, is it more useful for me to stop 4 people and die afterwards, or is it useful for me to be in the team fights and try to hope that that team fight is going to go well? That depends. It needs a lot of healing though. Like Frost DK is really squishy. So if you don't have great healers, it's going to be very complicated because you're like in the fray. You're going to be the target most likely because they don't like blue. But it is what it is, right? You have to play around it. And Holy DK, God, it's also strong, right? For me, it's also strong. I'm going to say that it's really equal to Frost DK because it has a lot of disruption. It has necrotic wounds actually, so that's even better in my opinion. But it has less CC than, let's say, a Frost DK. It has less of a scared feeling, I would say, because a Frost DK left alone, they can just destroy you, by the way. But a Holy DK left alone, they can destroy you, but a bit more slowly. And it's a bit more depending on your CDs, and I guess it's the same for Frost Decay, but Unholy Decay can play also a disease build where you have a lot of DPS, like really a lot of DPS. I don't know if it's going to be like the meta to play like a disease build, because again, you have to eliminate the people in front of you. You don't need to make them like a dummy target. You need to actually make them be destroyed and go back to graveyard in Grey Scream Simulator. But right now, I think Unholy Decay is still strong. I think they will have to see for War Within how they're going to deal with, if they're going to make it better or not, if they're going to make it badass or not. But overall, I'm really satisfied for the DK specs in Soloq Rbgs. I think it's very enjoyable to play, and I look forward to play even more. I think that's the beauty of Soloq Rbgs, being able to play multiple specs, multiple classes very easily. The access is so fun that it makes up for anything that actually happened in Soul Shuffle, in my opinion. Let's talk about Hunter. I think Hunter specs are a great talk. Hunter is very strong because of the DPS it can provide. I think it's S tier. So is a interesting spec because of the freedom you can get as a Soloq Rbg enjoyer. You can have a lot of damage very instantly. I would not say it's like no brain, but I would say that the players should understand, like, look, at any cost, do not let a Hunter free cast. That's a death sentence. They have CC, but it's not that impactful. You can really do some shenanigans on a few maps. But I think overall, can really destroy a flag carrier, especially a DPS one that has like the buff, but still they have like the stacks on them. You can really destroy them. You can often just like play greedy and play with sniper shot, which is maybe in social for not the optimal way, but in Soloq Rbg you can really open with a sniper shot, most likely like 9 times out of 10. It really depends on how the game goes, but often not you have time to do that. And you have camouflage, which again, you can cast sniper shot inside of a camouflage, so you have the opening and an opener. And overall, I think Hunter, it's no surprise that it is really good in a BG environment. Already in like normal 10v10, it was already something that was played and very good. People put them at defense, but I think offensively it has a lot of damage and a lot of potential. Hunter on the other hand, I think is a bit of a slow burner, but it can do damage. It can actually deal a lot of damage. But with the amount of CC, the amount of roots in teamfights, with the amount of like unwanted micro CC on the pets, sometimes you will leave with not the ability to deal damage in those fights. It's a good like node sitter because you can put your pet on the flag and you can be a bit further, so they could CC you, but you still have a pet to stop the capping. And if they CC both, impossible, he has time to actually cap it, because again, you'll be out of the CC rotation probably. You can really 1v2 for a long time on the node. You just need to play very evasive and not really for the kill. So that's something that he could do. They're excelling at, but I think it's more of a player ability kind of thing instead of like a spec thing. I think I'm going to put them at B tier. I'm really not like saying that it's bad, but I think it's like really average. The damage is not like surprisingly good as a Hunter. I think it's like slow killing. It has MS effect like Hunter, so that's something good. They have some okay CC. Again, I think if you're sitting nodes, you're going to be fine. But there are a few maps where you cannot really sit a node. You need to be really active in eliminating the people or being disruptive. But again, disruptiveness of a BM Hunter just comes down to, are you dangerous or not? And if you're not dangerous, you can just be rooted, cycloned, and then run away, right? So I don't know. Let's talk about Survival Hunter. I think Survival Hunter is actually doing pretty okay. I would have thought it is not, but it is actually doing a lot of damage. I think it's just surprisingly squishy in current meta. I think if we were in Shadowlands where we have Craven Stratagem, which is the thing that dispelled everything on you, negative, whatever you're going to do, a feign death. That was very strong, but currently they don't have that, so it feels like you're squishy depending on the healer. You can do 1v2, 1v1, you can do some interesting like kiting. I don't know, man. I think I'm going to put them at B tier. Maybe next season it's going to be a bit different because of their tier set. But I don't think it's like super different with the other specs in the B tier. I think it's the same. They have the same utility. They're also very good at base hitting. To be honest, all hunters are good at base hitting. I do think Hunter is a bit better at doing other things. But yeah, I think Survival Hunter B tier is like logical. Let's talk about the interesting spec, which is Shadow Priest. I think Shadow Priest is very good. If I'm going to put them in A tier. They're doing a lot of damage, you cannot ignore them. It's not the same as Soul Shuffle where it's easy to focus a Shadow Priest. It is not. It has a lot of self-heals. It has no dampening, by the way, so you're not going to down them very quickly. They have good damage, good CC. They can like win your fight because of solely a CC on the healer, which in Soul Shuffle it's also the same, but like imagine 5 other guys like hitting a healer, he's going to get destroyed whenever he's going to get silenced. Overall, very satisfied of Shadow Priest. Personally, I like Shadow Priest in Soloq Rbg, even more than Soul Shuffle because you're not really targeted. You're pretty much doing like your stuff, and if you're targeted, you're not going to fall down like easily. You need to fight. I think it's one of the best 1v1 specs in the game. Because of the utility defensive purposes that they have, they're very much like 1v1 machines. Disc Priest. Whoa. I'm going to put them at A tier, but top of A tier. But I think it's because of the fact that they have little mobility compared to Preservation and Resto Druid. But it does a lot of like things right. You have like barrier, you have pain suppression, you have atonement healing, which I remind you is healing on everyone, so it's very cool. You don't really have mana problems. You have no dampening problems, so your healing is always going to be effective. You could play a more aggressive build. You could also play more of a passive build. It really depends on the map. But overall, this priest has a lot of potential. I don't know if they're really on the level of a Resto Druid currently, but I would say in Soloq Rbgs, if you're facing a Disc Priest with another healer, it becomes very hard to down one of those two healers because of the damage reduction they can actually provide. Holy Priest, I'm going to put them on the same tier as Resto Shaman. It does some good healing, like Prayer of Mind. Prayer of Mending is very, very strong because of the AoE capacities and the amount of damage that they are going to do, like overall. You're going to get like a lot of procs, which is very good. You have good healing. They're not going to focus you most likely, so it's going to be easier to pump healing. You can also play more aggressive with your Holy Fires, so that's also a thing. But overall, I think Holy Priest is doing very well, but I don't think it's like on the same level as a Disc Priest or a Resto Druid or Preservation Evoker. Talking about S tiers, I think Mistweaver is the last S tier healer on the list. Let me explain. Mobility, they can fist weave, which effectively is making them unkillable, by the way, because of the amount of AoE they can do. They can do a blackout kick on 3 guys, and boom, the whole team is full. So very strong. They can also play caster Mistweaver, which is easier to stop because you can interrupt, but still very hard to kill because of the amount of CDs they have, like a revival or restoral, one or the other, depending on what he takes. You have also your life cocoon. You have multiple ways to heal very effectively. Again, I would say fist weaving is really strong. So high mobility as well. Yeah, I think I cannot really stress how good they are in Soloq Rbgs. Whenever I'm facing a Mistweaver, I know I'm going to have a bad time because it's very hard to down one. Very hard, especially with no dampening. So you have to play around that. Windwalker. I think Windwalker is not the same as a Arms Warrior though. I think they have the damage, but it's very squishy, very easy to stop. They have little HP as well compared to arms. Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like like B tier is a bit rough to put them, but I do feel like they're B tier though. They're not bad. I think it's top of B tier if you're like really comparing with each other. They have damage, they have mobility, they have availability. They're very slippery. They could really defend nodes very well as well with their double TP. But I think the issue is how they survive damage. I think they're not surviving. They really struggle with that. So it does deserve a B tier, in my opinion, just because of that. I would say like it's easier to kill a windwalker than a false decay in Soloq Rbgs, depending on the skill. Again, windwalkers, if they're very good, they could be a kiting machine and it's very hard to reach them. But I'm going to say as a balance druid or a destruction walk, whatever, you can really ruin his life with just CC. And it's very hard to stop CC whenever it happens. Let's get that out of the way. It is the best melee DPS in the game. DH. It does insane amount of damage, has a lot of mobility, has great defensive purposes. They have a lot of ways to deal damage very easily and very quickly. Their CDs are not that long compared to other specs. I would say Glimpse is still something very strong and very obnoxious to play against. Overall, I think it's probably the spec I really hate to face the most as a caster and as a melee, because I know, look, he's going to triple my damage or he's going to double my damage and I cannot do anything against that. I can just try to eliminate him and try to keep him at bay, but it's, again, depending on the healer, depending on your comp, depending on your spec, if you can do that or not. Let's talk about Mage first and then Paladin. I think Arcane Mage, I'm very sorry, I haven't seen that many, but the few ones I've seen, either they're very good and they're just good players, or either they're very bad and it's because of how they have to deal damage and how they deal damage. I'm going to put them at B tier, but really in the middle, I would say. Something like that. I do feel like Arcane Mage is strong depending on maps. And that's really depending on maps. Like, not on every single map you would like to see Arcane Mage in your team. I will be probably making a video about it, like Arcane Mage, Soloq Rbg, and see with my own eyes. I didn't play Arcane, so it might be a bit biased from what I've seen. But what I've seen and from what I've played with, I didn't feel like Arcane Mage was like really good to the point where they were carrying, or to the point where they were actually trying to carry. So right now I'm going to put them at B tier. They have tools, they have CC, they can really defend well on nodes. It's very hard, but still, I think B tier is a deserved spot. Frost Mage, I really like it. I really like it. It is for me probably S tier. Yeah. You're going to say, but how come we have that many S tiers? Because I think Soloq Rbg is that good. It makes every single spec playable to a degree, and even Fury Warrior and Demonology Walk is very playable. So it really depends. But again, if you're going to type it on the comment, don't bother. Like, I know there is many S tiers and there is many A tiers, but it just is how Soloq Rbgs are designed right now. It's not a solo shuffle where you have like a top 3 DPS and that's it. Here you have like a lot of like healers, a lot of DPS that are very equal to each other, but they are very good depending on the ways they're playing and depending on the maps as well. So I'm going to put Frost Mage at S tier. Why? Because it has a lot of slows, very disruptive, double ice block. They could go for ice armor. I don't even know how it's called anymore. Where you can play around frost balls and doing a lot of damage like very quickly because it's a 1 minute CD. You have really a lot of ways to like literally one-shot someone if they're not going to hit you. You have also some kamikaze build, and people are not dispelling frostbomb. And if frostbomb is not dispelled, it does a lot of damage, and it's free damage, really easily good damage with a, like, let's say a frost ray, like a ray of frost, excuse me. You can deal some pretty nutty damage. Fire Mage, also very interesting. In my opinion, A tier if you're very good at it, though. If you're very bad, it goes back to C tier. Very good, it means that if you know how to deal damage at all time, that is a very good characteristic from Fire Mage. They have a bit of less disruptiveness, but your damage, whenever you're bursting, is instantly higher than any other spec if you're left alone. You can also play Grand Pyro if you want to. It's not recommended, but you could do that. And you can play more of an offensive mage compared to a frost mage, I would say. But it's very strong. You have builds where you're kind of PvEing, but it's still good and respectable. I can't wait for War Within and see how they evolve as a spec. The last two specs, and I'm very happy because my mouth is super dry. But Holy Paladin is actually strong. I feel like double bob, freedoms, bubble for yourself. Your healing is very good. You have no dampening, so your daybreak is healing someone full at all times. I'm going to put them at A tier, below Disc Priest. I would say that it's more like this. I think it's like this. Holy Paladin is really surprisingly good, but it lacks the mobility, same as Disc Priest. If they had like crazy mobility, it would be higher. But I think Holy Paladins being able to freedom your flag carrier and being able to save your people with your bobs, especially healers, for example, you can really make a difference, and you can also deal some okay damage as a shotgun. Like I made a video about it. If you want to check that out, you can really play like a go Holy Paladin, I would say, where you're trying to get the kills and you don't really heal too much. It is possible to play like this, so I really enjoy Holy Paladin right now. I do wish they rework melee wings because right now nobody plays it, but it is what it is. Retribution Paladin, very strong, very strong. I do feel like it's on the same level as the arms. They have utility. Their off-heals are not that bad compared to Soul Shuffle, but still bad. But they need to rework it somehow, some way. You have crazy defensives on a very low CD, like Shield of Vengeance and how it's called, Aegis is really good. Like you can basically survive a lot of damage. And you can play even the Blessing of Spell Warning versus classes. So if you see like 5 classes against you, don't even like look at a Bob, just go for Blessing of Spell Warning. And overall, you have some crazy amount of damage on a very short CD. So I would recommend to play Retribution Paladin if you look for a hybrid that is very effective at eliminating the opposing enemies. This is my tier list. So it has been a long tier list, but I wanted to make it. I will be updating it probably if it is going to get a big patch, or else we're waiting for War Within. I have no alpha, unfortunately. I wish I had, but I don't. So it's very hard to test a few things. I kind of look at videos. It looks interesting, but I can't wait to have the beta at least, where I can test a few things, test builds, and make videos about it. So again, thank you for watching the video. Really appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. And we will catch you probably very soon in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.